something that's not on the agenda. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak to something other than what's on the agenda? Okay. Okay, you can stay for the meeting. You don't have to leave if you're here for that purpose, but, okay, we'll move to department head reports. Kevin?
Nothing to add in other than what's in your packet. I would just, there is one thing though that just came up last week that was kind of mentioned, Melissa and I talked about it and talked to her about it, was I received word last week. I applied for a grant and we received word last week that we were awarded a grant. There's no monetary award with this, it's simply consulting services. And so the purpose of the grant will be to start to look at trail development from basically here at the library where Maple Street Trail ends and go south and try to get some connectivity to the southern neighborhoods of our corporate limits, including Heritage and Continental and Country Club and those places. So this is simply a grant that the National Park Service will give us some very good technical assistance to come up with. The goal is, some of the deliverables would be to come up with some plan or some route options. What is the best way to get that direction? Obviously we have a couple things like the railroad and the creek to deal with. So this is a good opportunity for us to get that process started, the planning process, simply consultation. The Park Service will have some of their professionals, we'll work with them. So there'll be focus groups, interested stakeholders as that process continues. So anyway, I just wanted to make that mention that we'll be starting that probably at this calendar year, sometime here, probably this summer or early fall is what it looks like.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah.
We've got Linden and Beach Street overlay and street improvement projects that begin mid-May, early June. Any questions or concerns can be turned into City Hall. Will be followed up by myself on an on-call basis. We have new parking signs on Hackleberry Street. No parking signs have been installed on Hackleberry. Enforcement effective immediately along the east side of Hackleberry from 15th to 8th, and along the west side of Hackleberry from 10th to Westdale Lane. We have new speed limit signs on Chestnut Street. Speed limit line signs have been installed on Chestnut. South City limit to Wahoo Creek Bridge are 40 miles per hour. Wahoo Creek Bridge from 23rd, or from Wahoo Creek Bridge to 23rd, 30 miles per hour, and from 23rd to Highway 777 is 45 miles per hour. So other than that, that's about all I got.
Any comments on the speed limit change? I've heard a few on south end of town going from 45 to 40.
We oversigned it, so they're kind of placed strategically where there were some hot spots where people were speeding through.
People are just
I haven't
used to
heard too
45.
much about speeding. I've heard a lot of rumblings about the no parking signs. So I know they're enforcing those. I think we're gonna put some flags on them just for people to understand that they're there, but they clearly know that they're there when the police pull up. Everybody runs their cars and tries to move them real fast, so.
Okay.
Other than that, that's about all I have.
Okay. Chief?
I don't have much to report. I know Al Sullivan, myself, took a grant for him to fill out. He filled out the paperwork, got approved for 75% of some computer upgrades for the cruisers to comply with the state's e-citations. I think we got about $11,000 on that. Did it here recently.
Okay.
So
Nice.
that's about it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions we have received? Won't go into it tonight, but the street committee did meet earlier, went over a lot of stuff. Some aggressive stuff and some stuff that catch up and some stuff looking ahead. So I would say that was a good report. Melissa?
Sure. So in your packet is the financial report. If you have any questions on that, I'd be glad to address any specific questions you have. I'm going to try to do a little better job of reporting to you and updating you on the different things that I've done throughout a month, as well as the projects that we have going and the status of those. So, excuse me. During the month of March, Ryan and I did meet with Paul Essman with Capital City Concepts to review the report on the salary survey, and so we're working through potentially how those will be implemented, the potential changes, and then we want to address that with the Finance Committee and the Board of Public Works. We continue to have a monthly meeting with Windstream reps where we update, work with them on projects that we have in the works and get their updates, their input on that. I met with Kevin Cruz and Patrick Hartman from Olson on the North Drainage Study area. If you remember, they're from JEO. And we reviewed the preliminary findings, and we talked about the best way to have conversations with homeowners about those findings, and how we'll present those results to you as well. So that project is still in the works. I know that there is some concern from those property owners, and so hopefully at the next meeting I'll have a more complete report for you on that. We filled the second position, which was Jen Foster's position, with Crystal Wittoon, and she's been here for a couple of weeks and seems to be fitting in just fine. The airport runway project is in the works starting May 2nd. The concrete runway will actually be closed completely. We'll have no traffic on that until the project is completed. Hopefully the 1st of October, depending on whether it may be mid-October. No earlier than June 1st. It could be a little later. The grass runway will be closed, and that will be closed all the way until next spring, because as part of this project, some of that grass runway is going to be disturbed, and it will take a while for that grass to reestablish, to take the impact from traffic. We've been having North Highland improvements, construction updates. I believe the last I heard, the majority of the sanitary sewer was installed, and they're working on tying in those service connections. So then the next pieces of it will be the water line. I know that when they did the tap for tapping into some of the larger mains for the North Highlands project, that same day we happened to have 4 water main breaks down Broadway. So I don't think it was a coincidence, but they haven't been able to clearly identify what exactly happened. Again, as Joe mentioned, we have the overlay project for this year. The water line work is going to be starting on North Linden at about 11th Street and going, once the water work has been done, going south, then they'll come in and do the concrete work with the intersection returns and the sidewalk ramp improvements. They'll work their way down Linden Street and then Beach. There's some restrictions in the contract that limit the number of intersections that can be closed at one time. So, for instance, someone who lives on 9th Street between Linden and Beach will not be under construction at the same time. So they'll always be access for property owners. And then once all the concrete work is done, they'll come in and do the mill and overlay all at one time, which should be a pretty short process, actually. We did the final walkthrough on the safe routes to school on the punch list items today, and so Collins is going to be working to get those items addressed. I think that's it for projects. I know in the past you have asked about a wellness benefit for the fire and EMS members, and Kevin and I were able to work something out based on the LB 886 list that is presented to you in February of each year or the end of January. Any members that are eligible for that tax credit that is due to them will also be eligible for the wellness benefit, which entitles them to an individual membership at no cost. If they want to upgrade that to something more than that, they will have to be required to pay that in full for the year. If they lose their eligibility, which lasts all year, then the membership is ended or switched to they'll pay 100% for it. So I think that is, I want to thank Kevin for working that out, and I know will be appreciated. So, is there any questions for me?
That go into effect immediately, or
I
something
think-
we take out to the fire department?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any questions on that? Relatively short.
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion. Did you get both of them? Stewart on second, Carl, motion. Any comments on the questions? Roll call on the consent agenda?
Warford,
Yes.
Ritchie.
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Luke. Yes. Grapple.
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Okay, moving to the action items not require a public hearing. Item number 1 is acceptance of bids received and award contracts for the following projects: the guardrail project at Chestnut and Wahoo Creek, bridge embankment project at Chestnut Street and Wahoo Creek Bridge, and the Lake Wannahoo Trail embankment or bank stabilization project. That information is in your packet.
So you'll see on this project from the bid tab that we did have 5 contractors submit bids. The low bidder for the project was Gaina Trucking and Excavating, and the engineer reviewed the bid and has had experience working with this contractor, so they're recommending awarding the contract to Gaina Trucking and Excavating. The project completion date, which there's actually 3 parts to this project. There is the trail repair, there's the Wahoo Creek abutment repair, and then there's a guardrail installation. All of that work is to be completed by June 15th, so it's a pretty short turnaround. You'll likely be seeing a contractor on site sooner than later.
And the trail is June 15th also?
Yes.
And you answered one of my questions when you said it has been reviewed by the engineers, because when you have one bid that looks so much lower than the other bids,
You got 2 of them that are 450.
are you comparing apples to apples though? And it looks like it's been reviewed.
Right, and I think
It's acceptable.
part of it may have also been the short turnaround time with a June 15
got
deadline.
2 months
We
to
were
get the
taking a
job done.
little bit of a risk there.
We've got like bank grading, engineers estimate 106,000, the bid is 40,000. I mean, wow, that's, maybe they're just putting it in different categories. Yeah, as long as the engineers looked at it and they're comfortable with it.
Yes, they are.
It's just some areas look out of whack, but June is a quick turnaround.
So, because it's one contract, I guess the motion would be accepting all of the bids that were received and authorize awarding a contract for these 3 projects to Gaina.
So moved.
Second.
Glad you worded it. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on item 1, all 3, A, B, and C. Is there any questions or comments? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call on the item number 1.
Ritchie.
Yes.
Grapple.
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Luke. Yes. Warford.
Yes.
So then the other item that we have is there are actually 3 separate contracts for construction observation that and that includes staking and material testing. They do have their own in-house testing ability, so that's included in it where it's needed. If you have questions on this, I'll do my best to answer it. I just also want to review with you the total project for the bridge guardrail repair by the time you add design, engineering, the contract for construction, and the construction oversight is just over $30,000. On the bridge abutment, and repair, when FEMA was out, they estimated the project to be at 83,000 and some change, and that's gonna come in at just over 70,000. And then on the trail repair, FEMA estimated total project of right at 570,000, and that project's gonna come in at about 480,000. Of those two FEMA projects, there is a small local share that we already have covered as we went over when we authorized calling for bids, so.
So then the gamut trucking is 380, but the total cost is 480?
Yes, there was 81,000 in design engineering and 25 in construction oversight. The design engineering actually only ended up being on the trail, 63,000, so there's a little savings there.
I hope they engineer it well.
Yeah.
Keep sloughing off. So you're looking for a motion to accept the contract?
To approve the contracts and authorize the mayor to sign, and it would
So
be
moved.
all
Second.
three as a separate,
Three separate,
three
We
separate
run all three of them
contracts,
together, but we can run
one
all three together in
authorization,
one motion.
yes, yep.
okay.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any questions, other comments? Seeing none, roll call on item number 2, all three contracts.
Kirchy,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Grapple,
Yes.
Booth.
yes,
Okay, number 3, approval of designated or special designated license for Chips to serve alcohol at oil and propane on 3288 Ponderosa Drive on April 30th for a cornhole tournament. It's been cleared by Liquor Commission, or does this take any extra for that?
No, if there is local approval, we'll submit that to the Liquor Control Commission and they'll
On this
issue
one.
the special designated license,
Okay.
and we have talked about it with Joe.
Okay, good.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll say that.
Chris? Questions? Roll call.
Kirchy.
Yes.
Grapple.
Yes.
Booth.
yes,
Ideas.
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
Okay, number 4, review of proposals received for the redevelopment of Kennedy Campus, which is South Hall or Camel Hall, and the city property, owned by the city, which is South Hall. So, you have the contracts and one contract developer is here, okay.
So if you recall, you authorized requesting proposals for either a demolition and, well, basically a redevelopment of the Kennedy Campus South Hall project or property, as well as the, what's currently known as the basketball court property. And in that request for proposals, we asked for something that would be residential, serve a residential need, and have basically a complementary recreational aspect to it. And any interested developers were encouraged to have conversations with Kevin about what he was specifically looking for. We had 3 interested parties, and 2, they actually went and visited the site, walked through the building. We had the corner staked, we had an asbestos investigation done, and found out that if the building's going to be demoed, the cost of asbestos remediation is between $30,000 and $40,000. For remodel of the building, it's between $40,000 and $50,000. So the city actually had that done. It needed to be done. It's an eligible expense. We've spent quite a bit actually getting title to that property, so it was another less than $1,000 to get that done. And that was provided to all of the interested parties. So we do have 2 proposals. Both of them were sent out to you in the packet. Eric and Bill Hancock submitted the one proposal for a Kennedy Square living project. And as I said, the information is available for you in the packet. They did supply some additional renderings today, which there's 2 copies of those renderings, and you can share them if you like. That's their vision for the property. The second one was received from Mike Sullivan, and I believe he's here, so he can answer specific questions about what their vision is for that property. My thought on this, once you hear the proposals and review the proposals, is that you work to put together a committee or decide who wants, whether it's the Economic Development Committee, whether it's Finance Committee, however you want to move forward, that would allow you to have a more one-on-one conversation with both project proposals and come forward with a recommendation. Now, you can choose to do something different, but that would be how I feel it could be handled fairly efficiently.
So Melissa, I'm assuming your thought is to basically close the RFP proposal process, i.e. limit it to the 2 people that have
Yes,
submitted,
they
and then
have
just
met.
investigate further.
Right, there was a deadline submitted or proposed, and there was actually an extension to that deadline of last Thursday at noon, and both proposals met that deadline, so it is per our request for proposals. These are the only 2 we're gonna be getting, unless you decide you wanna reject both of them and start with something else, but. So,
Okay.
unless you have any other questions for me, I would let Mike. Do any of you need a copy? I have a few extra copies of both proposals. You need both?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll share them here, we'll have to look through it now.
Okay,
Yeah,
the Hancocks were here, I don't know if they were coming back or not, but Mike Solomon, if you wanna talk a little bit on your presentation and your proposal and.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Sullivan, Wicked Investments. Thank you for the opportunity to submit our proposal. We are really trying to increase the amount of residential buildings in this neighborhood. We really like the single-family setup that's currently there. We're trying to also play off of the senior housing that's down the street. So what our proposal consists of is renovating the Camel complex into studios and 1-bedroom apartments, and go through an extensive renovation of that building just to keep the character of that building kind of intact. And then in the green space to the south, to build duplexes and 3plexes that are 0 entry, very convenient for all age groups, kids, all the way up to elderly. So that's our proposal. In the middle, we really want to have a central core of walkability with among this campus. We have a couple ideas for parks and activity areas to place on the site. The activity areas can be pretty mobile. They can go a couple different spots. We wanted our concept to show a couple different options of where we think it would be best to place those activity areas, but really the program of what you have in front of you can be easily moved around just like Lego pieces. So yeah, we're pretty excited about our proposal. One thing I just want to clarify is, our garages are detached, and above the garages, we are proposing 2 studio apartments just to maximize the space, give a different element of a place to live in that neighborhood. Just kind of a fun aspect to have a studio apartment a little higher up off the ground. So just want to clarify that detail. So. We are going to utilize the streets all the way around, the 2 existing streets, and then build out the road to the north of the dormitory as a corridor to park more cars. I think we have ample parking for our proposal. I think we're at 43 in total parking spaces, 10 garages, 33 surface parking. But again, our concept can be malleable to get to a well-dialed-in project that meets the needs of the community and for the city. So, yeah, again, I appreciate the opportunity. We are requesting TIF for this project as well. I put in kind of the basic TIF request in the application, but again, as we move forward and do as-built and really get an understanding of the structure of the dorm, of what can be, saved and what needs to be reinforced, that the budget will kind of push and pull organically as we kind of get into the project. So, any questions?
What was your thought process on either keeping or demolishing the Camel Center?
Our proposal is to keep it. So,
Yes. Which could be an expensive endeavor.
Correct. But in walking it with Travis, I was quite surprised about the structural integrity of the building. I grew up in Wahoo. I've been around that area quite a bit, played basketball on the basketball court, and I would assume the inside would be more worn down, I guess. A lot more water damage, I would assume, would be there. From my walkthrough, it wasn't that bad. The roof seemed to be pretty well intact. Sure, there's some leaks here and there, but for not being used for 20-some years, I thought it was in decent shape. So I thought the roof was okay. Yes, there'll be repairs that are needed for structure. Yes, there'll be repairs for roof, and as well in the basement with the fire that happened down there. But looking through those items, I think resurrecting that building to keep the character of the neighborhood, keep the history of the building, I think would be awesome for the city of Wahoo and that neighborhood, because this is just one part of Kennedy College. As you guys all know, there's more parts that could be the arms and the legs to add to this project. So I don't want to scrape the face of this entire area right out the get-go. I want to keep what's there because it could also be a time and budget saver if things go well. So time, I think, is also important because as interest rates rise, as construction costs kind of also rise with it. My proposal is to start with 2 contractors, a commercial contractor on the dorm, and then I can use a residential contractor to do duplexes and 3plexes all day. So,
What's your square footage of those townhome units? Those ones with
so
the
we're
letter D?
proposing, again, there's a little bit of push and pull there. We're proposing 2-story units. What do you think, Andrew?
20 by 40 for the ones that have the letter D on them. So
Yep.
about 800 square feet per floor. So multiply that by 2, maybe
Okay.
about 1,600 square feet for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhome.
Thank you.
Where's the basketball court?
So if you go to version B,
Keep stepping on.
we shifted everything south
Oh, you didn't.
and put the basketball
yeah.
court just south of the garages. So it's actually really close to where it currently is. So and it's shrunk quite a bit. We're doing just 2.5 court. So. And again, this is just our concept. These things can be pushed and pulled like Lego pieces. So if the committee that comes about has a different idea of where they want the basketball court or playground, picnic area, these pieces can be moved around, no problem. So
Okay. Yeah.
If they don't have any other questions.
Okay, on the north side of that property, is that actually, is this you can drive? That's not a real street over there, is it? Or,
It's
I mean,
my-
you've got parking over there.
it's my understanding, and Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, the drive is included in this lot
Like
parcel.
half a street or something?
Yeah, it's one lane. So we're
Okay.
gonna build it. We're gonna build from that lane south into the dorm space, green space, and then park it that way. So, and we are utilizing the current street of Locust parking as well. It's parallel
Okay.
parking right now. So
So on
Thank
that
you.
note, Stuart, I know that there has been some question about where exactly that property line lies on the north side.
Yeah.
So we did have Jerry Charles come out and identify those property pins
Okay.
and set. So that was available for everyone who wanted to review the property.
Okay.
As he mentioned, I know time is kind of an important element in this as the construction world changes. It would be ideal if we could get a committee together between now and the next council meeting to come to some sort of recommendation to move forward. Because once that step is completed, then we need to go into the process of developing a redevelopment agreement, and that does require some public hearings. There'll be an investment in attorney fees to actually get a redevelopment contract put together. That process does take a little bit of time, 30 to 45 days, and so the sooner that we can come to some decision, the better it is for those that have submitted the proposals. So.
My thoughts, timing is important, that's for sure. A committee that I think this would fit in pretty well with would be the Economic Development Committee, which would be Stuart and Carl and Ryan.
Okay.
The three of you as Economic Development.
Then would you want, like, Kevin and Melissa to attend the
Yeah.
interview meeting too?
Yeah,
presumably,
yeah,
or-
yeah, they would be part of it. Again, if we can, I think in fairness, with the situation with the weather, the Hancocks has families and whatnot, I guess we all do, but they left, so I think, we need to give them opportunity to present their thoughts on it and their proposal, and then whether we can do it in one evening or whenever, what the time frame is, and listen to theirs, and then be able to go into a depth, probably on either one of them. So, if you could stay afterwards, and maybe we can establish a meeting date for the first
Sure.
one. Okay?
Makes sense.
So are we wanting to, presumably, we're gonna close the RFP submissions, we're gonna accept the two proposals as presented, and designate the executive committee to interview those two proposals,
Economic
I mean-
development.
or the economic development
Yeah,
committee.
those three are on that committee, that are
Okay.
standing committees.
You want a motion to that, Joey?
I think it probably makes sense because the RFP process.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, second, did you get it, Chris?
I didn't see a second.
Two of the committee members did. Okay, any questions on the process here, and maybe at least a soft timeline, but hopefully we can keep it moving, so. Okay, if there's no other questions, roll call on the motion to establish the roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Ritchie,
Yes.
Raffle,
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Number 5, approval for alignment of frontages for 1308 North Beach Street for a garage addition. There's a drawing in your packet of the lot.
I get to be Travis as well tonight. So if you have any questions, he did bring me up to speed on that. There is, on the, is it Beach Street
Beach
side
side.
of the property, there is a natural gas line that runs in front of the home. That's nothing new. They'll just have to negotiate or work with the utilities to get that lowered if it's necessary. So if you have any questions specifically, I'll try to answer them. They are,
Front
so,
to Beach Street.
yeah, the alignment of frontages is along Beach Street. So their house, this diagram that we have here, their house sits here, their current garage is located right here, and they wanna just extend that out to the north. And so Travis has the calculations in here showing, they would meet the percentages for alignment of frontages, and that adding this garage, they're still going to be compliant with the the limitations on lot coverage.
So the addition they're putting on will go further to the west to line up with.
To the north.
To the north.
Towards the alley.
To the north, okay, not a wider garage, just the extension as it is, okay.
Yeah, so they have an eligible of 1,372, no, have 1,587 square feet, and that they are eligible before they are you do alignment of frontages. So it's closer.
Travis doesn't have the authority to administratively approve a relaxation of the setback, only the council can. And under the regs, the council can only do so when it meets that formula criteria. And Travis has looked at it and said it
That's all
doesn't meet the
fits.
formula.
Okay. Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay. Any questions? Roll call on approval of the alignment.
Ritchie,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Raffle,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Number 6, action to establish a committee to review needs and provide recommendations on city facilities, as we're talking primarily this building. I had mentioned, go ahead,
No, I'm just gonna.
you're gonna speak
Yeah, I'm
again?
gonna speak again,
You
sorry.
need to sit at the other end.
I'll just stay up here.
She's just trying to get the steps on the foot, you know?
So as you know, we had the presentation from JEO a few council meetings ago, and I know that there's just some overall city facility review that we need to look at because as you start looking at this facility, how are we going to pay for it? It sort of comes in. Other facilities come into play in terms of, you know, are there other properties that need to be updated? Are there other areas where the city needs improvement in facilities? So if we can have a committee of the council sit down with staff and have a work session or a meeting where we have some of the council members that kind of become more of an expert on this, then maybe we can get off center or move forward. I'm not sure exactly how to proceed, but I feel like having members of the council that can become more educated on what the needs are for all of the facilities, and then speak on the council meeting about the discussions is a good place to start. So, Jerry.
Okay, you're thinking of a, well, it'd be 3 or less.
Right, and as a,
Council members to meet initially and then bring it to the council. Would that be where we'd have a work session or?
yeah, we could,
Yeah.
yes, right. But I think, utilities, if we could have representation from members of the Board of Public Works as well, and
Yeah.
then we would have department heads come in and actually sit down and we'd have some more lengthy conversations.
I think it'd be valuable, Board of Public Works, fire, rescue representatives, and whoever else.
Yeah, I can.
He can
I
represent
volunteer.
too.
You're on both. You're willing to be one
Yes.
of them? Any other volunteers?
I volunteer.
I would volunteer.
Okay,
It's interesting to me.
okay, so we have Stuart and Carl and Chris. All right. Okay, action, so I entertain a motion that those 3 people become the committee to review the needs of the facilities. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Got them both?
Mhm.
Okay, roll call on establishing the committee.
Ideas,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Ritchie,
Yes.
Raffle.
Yes.
Thank you. While I'm thinking about it, 2 of them are gonna stay after for a little bit. Karen, if you could stay a little bit, because we need to establish a finance committee meeting shortly. Can you stay for a little bit? Thank you. Okay, proposal to change the location of city council and other public meetings. I totally understand the situation that we have, where the police department could have, this could be tied up when we want to have meetings in here, with having somebody brought in or it's disruptive, at least to the department, for people to come in and out of here. So we're having to come in the other way. Probably it would all the time if we're to let people in there. That's one reason. The other reason is when we start working on this, we're going to have to move out of here anyway. And we have met at the library before, so thinking that establishing our meetings from here on out until maybe further notice that we meet at the library. All meetings, whether it's committee meetings, council, or other meetings that public is involved, be over there. Is there a problem with that?
Yeah.
Is there a motion to change the meeting location?
I make the motion.
And second that.
Okay. Okay, we got them both?
Yes.
Roll call on change of location.
Nagel,
Yes.
Pritchie,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Boop,
Yes.
Scrabble.
Yes.
Okay, number 8.
That will start at the next meeting.
Okay.
And is that in the, that it will be at the library?
Yeah, the library.
Yes.
Yeah, I should have put that.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
Yeah.
but it needs to go in there that it's gonna be
Yeah,
at the library.
needs to be in there. Change it to the library.
Revise that motion.
Yeah. That's a friendly addition, I'm sure. Okay, number 8, update on negotiations regarding Kennedy campus property, which is owned by Rich Vernon by title, but I think by legal title is People of Destiny. But
Correct, and so this is only listed as update. It's not intended that you're gonna take any action tonight, but I thought that there's been some delay in this since the last time it came in front of the full council. I thought it was probably appropriate to maybe explain the delay, and then after I give kind of just a very abbreviated explanation, I know the property owners are here, so certainly if they want to speak to it too, they're more than welcome to, but maybe then we ought to go into executive session after that. But so the last time we had a substantive conversation about this, I think was the second meeting in January, and at that time I had indicated to you, based on discussions with council, that we had generally reached the terms of an agreement, and a written document had been exchanged between the parties, at least through council, indicated that the terms were generally acceptable, and that was the last meaningful update that I gave to you as a full council. Then on February 16th, I got notice from council that they wanted to add a clause called a force majeure clause into the contract, which basically says, hey, if there's an act of God that occurs that causes a delay, the deadlines within the agreement would be extended based on the time frame of whatever that act of God is that caused the delay. Right. So not terribly significant, but a change. And then on March 22nd, we got some proposed revised dates, the dates being pushed out quite a long time. And so long enough that then I had a conversation with the committee that has been dealing with this, and the general agreement amongst the committee was that the extension of the dates was not terribly palatable and agreeable from the committee's perspective. We basically indicated to the other side that we wanted to know if the dates that the committee felt appropriate were acceptable, and that if they weren't, then we'd have to take action at the April 26th meeting, where the council would formally discuss this and make a decision with respect to how best to proceed from that point. And so that's kind of an update of what's happened the last 2.5 months or so. Since we discussed it, you looked at the language in the development agreement and the like. So I don't know if property owners care to speak. Certainly you're not obligated to by any means. To the extent that you don't, I think we probably ought to at least conclude with a very short closed session meeting. Again, because we are dealing with the development agreement, we're dealing with the potential for conflict as amongst the parties, and so we need to talk about what those negotiating positions might be in executive session. And so, again, if anybody wants to ask me questions that aren't legally related, and or if the property owners want to speak, they certainly can, but If not, then I would look for a motion to go into closed session with Melissa and myself being included in that closed session meeting.
Please state your name and
Rich Vernon, pastor of People Destiny Ministries. I appreciate you all being here tonight on a stormy night. And I guess I have a question for the committee or for the council. From day one when we started this project of moving forward, I personally have had the impression that you are against us, and that's not let up. And I could go into details allocating that, but I'm not going to take time for that tonight. We looked at the proposal that was given to us. We've been talking to our attorney about it. We're still talking about that. Some concerns we have is, number one, it's been all along, there's been a $10,000 penalty if things are not completed on time. And with our economy situation like it is right now, with help, I've talked to numerous contractors trying to get laborers and et cetera. Cost of material has doubled and tripled in many areas, and everyone's hoping that sooner or later it's going to go back the other direction. We have fulfilled what we proposed to do. We fixed the roof on the dormitory. We put brand new windows on the dormitory. We're in the process of putting white paneling on the lower windows so there's no breakage in. We have taken off the ceilings in the dormitory so the structural engineer can come in and take a look at this. We've cleaned out the gymnasium, and our probably number one request is that we could secure a permit to take the roof off of the gymnasium. And the reason being is we want to be able to do that because number one is I am in the process of probably losing my help, and I need to keep them for this process and to complete that and put a new roof on there. Windows have been ordered. They will not be here until sometime in July. And we found that material is backlogged and stuff we're trying to get our hands on. And so we understand. I found out the first time here a couple of weeks ago was that before that permit could be given to us, we have to plat the properties together, and that's a 3-month process. That's the first time I heard of that. And I'm thinking 3 months out, okay, time's ticking. And we're trying to get the roof on the gym. Structural engineers looked at both buildings, giving us the thumbs up on them. And so we're trying to make the necessary repairs that need to be done immediately and take attention to it. Our purpose is to keep these buildings as part of our heritage of our community. And that dorm was built in 23. That was built like a tank. And I've had numerous people say if there's an earthquake, tornado hit, that would be the one place they'd want to be, was in that dorm, because of the way it was structured and the way it was built. And everything I've seen, I would totally agree with that 100%. We're wanting to use the gymnasium not as a gym, but it's going to be used as a multi-purpose. It'll be used for a church. It will be used for drama presentations. Live drama presentations will be an act first class. We want to use it, be available for community use, like after school programs that kids could come in if they need to, they could do homework and etc. There's a lot of other things that we want to utilize that for. And people that come up on the campus, their comment is this is the most peaceful place in town. And they like the atmosphere. And we want to keep that. In fact, some trees we'll be removing, we are going to take and run them through a sawmill and put that wood back into the structures because that's part of the campus. I was told when I first moved here that every tree that was native to Nebraska was planted on that campus, and the only other place in the state was Central City. We would like to find those native trees and put them back in there to replace some that have been taken away. And so we want to preserve the heritage that the Lutherans established. They were there probably 70, 80 years. And then Kennedy came in for 10. We're wanting to build on that foundation that was laid. But we need some assistance. And if I look at it correctly, is that once we pull the permit, then that means we have to have the properties plotted together, and then we deal with the roof, and then everything has to be done. And if it's not done in the amount of time, which is a year, then we are fined $10,000, and then it comes before you again. And I don't understand that one, because we are working and we are putting money and effort into this, and to see it succeed and be a success. It may sound like I'm bragging, but anything I put my hands to in this community I think has been successful. And I've been here 37 years. And I'm not a preacher that comes and flies by because of the weather. I believe in the community. I've made sacrifices in this community. And I've grown to love this community.
Good. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What are you gonna do with the dormitory? What's the purpose for that building?
We're going to announce that at a later time. One of the things we'll be doing is we will be hosting conventions, and that will bring people in, and that'll be hotel revenue, gas, restaurants, etc. That we'll be utilizing.
In that building?
No, that'll be part of what we're going to be doing. That'll be in the gymnasium.
And just as a reminder, Karen, as Pastor indicates, the development agreement that we were negotiating, we never implemented or required them to do anything in the form of a build-out within the East Hall structure, because the terms of the agreement basically was, hey, you get the building on the outside to the point where it no longer looks like a nuisance, you shore up the small structural issues on the interior of it, and then it's their discretion what they want to do thereafter. And so that's where we basically left it on that East Hall.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. At this point, I would entertain a motion that we go into closed session, and that everybody at this table, council, Jovan and Melissa and myself, be in attendance in that closed session. So if there's a motion and a second, it'd be appreciated.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, and so the one thing, the motion technically, just so
Yeah,
to make
this
sure
is
it's
for-
in the minutes, is when you go into executive session, you have to state one of basically two general reasons why you're going to executive session. One being for the protection of public interest as a result of potential litigation. The other being for the protection of public interest because you're negotiating the terms of a real estate contract, a union or a pension issue, something to that degree. And so the idea there conceptually is that you don't want to discuss that in open session because then you're showing your cards and that potentially hurts the leverage or the negotiations that the city has, and that injures taxpayers, right? And so within the motion, we just need to simply indicate that it is for the protection of public interest as a result of the potential for litigation.
Motion and a second, is in?
Yes.
Okay, roll call to go to closed session.
Ideas?
Yes.
Boop?
Yes.
Pritchie?
Yes.
Warford?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
We need to restate while we're
Yeah, and so,
Okay.
and Melissa's right, which is to say, once you make the motion states why you're doing it. Then once you go into executive session, you restate to the audience why that's being done. While in executive session, you cannot take action. Again, based on this agenda item, even when we come out of executive session, you can't take action because it wasn't listed as an action item. But hypothetically, if it was an action item type thing, you would come out of executive session, you would discuss the issue, and then you would make a motion a second in open session where everybody was allowed back into the room.
So there'll be no other action tonight.
Yeah.
So. Thank you.